Sausage.
Hello, 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 and welcome, welcome to Attack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Marcus Nez, that's me, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. I am here to talk about Kenna Bridge of Spirits, which originally launched on PlayStation 5. I can't remember if it was also on PS4 or not. And I'm not sure if it launched on PC at the same time as PS5. But years later, 2+ years later, I don't know the actual release date. I could have looked all this up, but that takes work. And by work, I mean Google, Kenna Bridge of Spirits, release date, done. But I didn't do that. Also, in case... Hey, Google! Shut up! Alright? Jesus. Mental note. Never say the G word ever again while recording. I need to mute that thing. The thing that sucks about it is that muting it puts a little thing on it, and I just want it to be a nice little picture frame. We're already off to a great start. You could say, why didn't you just start over? We're doing this live. We're doing this raw and dirty. This is what you come here for. Anyone can do a nice clean show. How many people can be interrupted, not on purpose, this wasn't a bit, by the G word? Anywho, what I was getting at is I wasn't sure how to pronounce the title of the game and figured I would learn it by playing the game, and at the very start, they said Kenna. Then, more recently, because I'm about 6 hours in, they started saying Kina. I like the sound of Kenna more, so I'm going to stick with that, but Kina, Kenna, we can all agree that it's at least pronounced Bridge of Spirits. But after a good long while, a few years plus, it was announced to be coming to Xbox, and this saddened me to some degree because I do like to keep my general gaming library consolidated to one platform. So whenever I know a game is going to be multi-plat, I will buy it or wait for it to come on Xbox. For some reason, I thought Kenna was a forever console exclusive on PlayStation. So at some point during some sale, I did buy it, in part because I was very, very excited about it. I wanted to support them, and I just wanted to play the game. I never got around to it. This came up, that came up. Father had a stroke, other medical things. You don't need all those details. Also, my hair is freshly washed and poofy, and no product, and it's just, you gotta live with it. But when it was announced for Xbox, I got really annoyed for no real good reason, because it's irrational and dumb for me to want to focus on a single platform as much as I can. And I know a lot of people will be saying, why Xbox? I like the controller. I built a library there over last gen, and I like achievements, even though I'm not as invested in them as I once was and haven't been for a very long time. I still just find it to be the most comforting, homely platform that I have. And so many games between the two, and also the platforms themselves, have gotten closer and closer and closer to the point where it's really just about the exclusives or the controller. I think the DualSense is a fine controller, but I vastly prefer the Xbox controller. I don't think any of the rumble stuff is all that interesting in what I've seen of it. There's some novelty to it, but overall, I don't think it's added anything significant to any experience I've had. But that's enough about all of that. I was excited to play Kenna for one very specific reason. So I think it is different in my head than what I thought it was. I said to myself, this looks like the game that will come closest to scratching my Jak and Daxter itch than any other game possible outside of a new Jak and Daxter game. What I think I really meant by that, because it doesn't scratch that itch at all. What I think I meant by that was Kenna Bridge of Spirits looks like the most PS2-ass PS2 game that's just not on PS2. And I say that lovingly. I love the PS2. It is my favorite console of all time. That will never change. I adore the PS2. I love the look of it. I love the game. I just adore the PS2. It's the only console where I took the logo, or I got the logo in magnet form off of Etsy, because I think it just looks that good. So I was excited about Canon because it looked like a PS2 game in terms of the vibe and the feel, the mechanics, the structure, with a PS5 or more neutral, a current gen look to it, because it looks quite good. But let's just get into it. We're already kind of there, so let us get to the game itself. First and foremost, it looks absolutely beautiful. We hear people say about this game or that game, often with the Ratchet and Clank games, that it's like playing a CG movie, a 3D animated movie, and Kenna really fits that bill, because it not only looks great, but the aesthetic, the art style, looks like it was ripped right out of a high quality, big budget 3D animated movie. The more I played, the more I thought to myself, while it's not a one-to-one comparison, it doesn't look exactly like this franchise I'm about to mention, I see a lot of similarities in vibe and tone to the How to Train Your Dragon movies. And I could see that studio making a full-length movie out of this story, these characters, this world, because the story that I've experienced so far has also been interesting, engaging, not overdone. It doesn't do one of the things I hate, one of the sins I look at in gaming, which is dump a lot of story and exposition on you right from the start. It doles it out at a nice pace, and after about what I assume is the halfway point, or maybe 2/3, saving, I believe his name was Taro's spirit, you get a nice meaty cutscene that was moving and really well done. You can see that if it is an internal studio doing the cutscenes, you can see a lot of cinematic pedigree there that feels like it's done by people who know how to frame a shot and edit a scene and put something together that looks cinematic. It is just an absolutely beautiful game. The world, the characters, the creatures, the lighting. It's just a beautiful, beautiful game. And I'm playing it on performance mode and haven't had any kind of performance issues. So right off the bat, great first impression, visually speaking. And then the audio, while I can't see myself listening to the music outside of the game, it fits the tone of the world so well and really helps create this pleasant vibe that the game has most of the time when you're not engaging in combat. When you're just exploring the world, it's pleasant. I look at this game and the world where the main objective is clearing it of this corruption that has taken over much of the land, which is not a new concept. There have been plenty of games that have done that. There's a game called Drake's Hollow, I think, which is a weird one to bring up because there are plenty of better ones to bring up, I'm sure. It reminded me immediately of that upcoming Xbox game, South of Midnight, where in the most recent gameplay clip we saw of it, it seems like you're doing that as well. But the music just, it fits. a lot about this game just fits. And that goes with the gameplay as well, which feels overall good. I do have some negatives, which I'll bring up, but I want to talk about everything I like so far first. In terms of feel, it feels good. The combat feels good. The platforming feels good. Your few abilities, you get a bow, and then the last thing you get is a bomb you can throw, and you can upgrade these to a very small level. All of that feels good. What is extra cool about the game, though, is that a big part of it is this command mechanic where you collect these rots, which I think is such a weird thing to call these things because they're so adorable, and rot makes them sound so not adorable. But in a very Pikmin-esque manner, Overlord manner, potentially. I don't have a lot of experience with those games. I've never played a Pikmin game. I know. It's in the backlog. And I only played a little bit of Overlord. But as you're collecting these rot, and you don't need a certain number of them to complete certain tasks, the reason why you want to collect more and more is to increase your level and give yourself some extra abilities. I'll get to that. But the rot are just these cute little balls of... saying they're these little balls of blackness sounds really weird, but that's essentially what they are. And they just follow you around, little chubby bellies, and they're meant... They exist for gameplay purposes, yes, but they also exist just to be cute and for you to interact with them, kind of reminiscent of a Boy and His Blob, where in that game you could hug the blob at any point. At any point during Kenna, you can just sit down and interact with your rots in a handful of ways. You can kiss them, which doesn't mean you kiss them, but means one little one hops onto your shoulder, gives you a little kiss, and then your character, in the cutest, quietest way, says, "Aw, thanks." That's just, trust me, it sounded way cuter than what I just said. But you can also do a little dance and sneeze for a weird reason. You'd think maybe you'd replace sneeze with hug, but I guess kiss gets the job done. So you could do that at any point, and it's adorable. When you're in the combat, though, it can get a little scary, and it can get tough, which is something that is a bit surprising with how pleasant the overall experience is most of the time, and how much of this game feels like it would be so perfect for younger kids, because while it does have this darker side when you get into combat and some of the themes, it's just very cute in many ways. But you can drop the difficulty. I'm playing on the default difficulty. You can drop it down to, I believe, what they call a story mode, which I haven't tested out to see how easy, but I like that that's there because I do think this game should lower that barrier of entry, which is the combat. But so far, I'm really loving all that. One last thing to mention super positively is that, like a lot of PS2 games, and why this feels like a PS2 game is just in that it's very simple. It's not trying to do anything crazy. You have your basic combat, which is basic. You have basic platforming. And then you have this small environment that you can jump around, explore, find various collectibles, do a few missions. You have your little map that'll give you a point of where the tasks are. And it's not really asking a lot of you. And it just feels... it feels nice to have something that's not overblown and full of a bunch of extra stuff that's just there to waste your time. But what I really like is that on the map, because there are a lot of collectibles, there are maybe 8 or so different categories, you can see on the map how many collectibles of each kind are in a specific area and how many you've collected of them so far. But to make it even better, especially if you're using a guide during or using a guide after you've completed the game and want to collect and 100% the game after that, there's a little button you can press to toggle the location of every collectible you've found so far. And then you can see between each category, okay, there are 8 rots in this area that I can find. I've only found 3 so far. Where are the other 5? Okay, I'm looking at this guide and I can see these locations, but which ones have I already found? Okay, I press this button, boom, there they are. And now I know exactly which ones I haven't found yet. That quality of life inclusion is just really small, probably to a lot of people, but I think it's such a smart inclusion. But it's not all good. This is a kind of good-bad thing. The default control scheme, I think, is bad. Thankfully, you can remap all the controls, but you can't get it quite perfect based on the actions you have in the game. Why I don't like the controls by their default is that I am not a fan of bumpers and triggers for combat, especially or specifically regarding melee games. I have to assume earlier games did it, but I'm pretty sure this was popularized by the Souls games, and I don't know why that aspect of them was taken by so many games. The combat, the controls that is, not the combat, but the controls of the Souls games are not one of those things that propel that series to the success it's found. No one, you thankfully default jump with A, but no one likes jumping by pushing in the right analog stick. No one does. And if they do, they're fucking nuts. Take away their games. It's insane. No one could possibly like that. And there's always going to be someone that likes it. There's always someone for something. But my God, no one goes away from the Souls games thinking, man, the 3 things I loved about the game: the world building, the aesthetic, the combat. No, it's the controls. My favorite thing about Dark Souls is the controls, and the fact that I don't know what other stupid things somebody could like about those games. Not to say it's stupid if you like that, but I think you're stupid. I'm sorry. Don't hate me. I'm stupid too. We're all stupid, all right? We all have our stupid things. Guess what? I still, for whatever dumb reason, to go off on a tangent, feel the need to own a Blu-ray copy and a 4K copy of a movie if it exists. That means if there isn't a combo pack, I'm going to buy 2 copies because I'm a fucking idiot. So you're welcome. Now you have something to hold over me. But I can never get it quite right. I still forget things because I've adjusted in ways where the combat is now on the X and Y button, which I like. I'm playing on Xbox, of course. And then I had to do some extra finagling so that when using the bow, I fire an arrow with the right trigger instead of the regular attack button, which made other things have to change. It's a bit of a mess. But that is very much so a me thing and not a point of negativity against the game itself. What I do think is bad and not a me thing is the parrying. I am not a huge fan of parrying in general. It's not something I like. I prefer dodging in combat. That's why I really love the Souls games and wasn't quite able to get into Bloodborne the first time I played it. I'd like to go back. It's why Sekiro scares me as much as I want to play it. And any game that has a heavier reliance on parrying is something I'm hesitant to dive into. It's not important in Kenna. You don't need to use it. But I can't for the life of me figure out the timing and how it works in any kind of way that I can in other games that have parrying. I can eventually figure out or at least get somewhat reliable when it comes to parrying. But in this game, I've only managed 1 parry and it was by accident. I didn't know how I did it. I was so shocked and surprised when it happened during the stream, and it's never happened again since. So I think that is bad. I also don't like the double jump. I like having a double jump, but the way the double jump works, this is another thing that's more of a me thing, is that the way the second jump works is it propels you upward in exchange for halting your momentum. So when you initiate that double jump, your forward momentum will be halted. You won't stop dead in air. You'll still move a bit, but your momentum will not push you as far as it would had you waited to do that second jump. So the way to double jump proficiently is to jump at a distance and then wait until the last minute when you know you'll still get enough height to reach whatever ledge you're trying to get to. This isn't bad, but it just means you have to learn the way it works in the game to get the most out of it and get the areas you need to get. Not a bad thing, but just something I don't love. That's the majority of my negativity at this point. I am curious how much of the game I actually have left, because it could be a few more hours. I'm thinking it's somewhere in the range of 3 to 5 hours left, probably closer to that 5, but we shall see. And I am liking it so much currently that I will definitely go back and try to collect everything. I'm enjoying it that much. That's not something I commonly do. There is a New Game Plus as well, which I don't know what that does, if it just allows you to go into a new game with all of your upgrades. The upgrade system is fine. You don't have that much to do with, and you have to increase your rod to collect more of them to open up certain upgrades, which can be a bit frustrating if you don't want to deal with that. But there is a benefit to doing that, because one of the things your rots can do, they in many aspects of the game, you'll use them to pick up objects and move them around to help you reach a new area, or they'll pick up an object and lift it and give you some kind of currency or karma, which you use for upgrades. They are used in combat to stun enemies at time, or heal yourself on plants that might be scattered in boss fights. They can be used to, or have to be used to, cleanse areas. So you'll have a flower that opens up after a combat section. You send them there and then use your little spirit shockwave to do the deed. And you have this hammer ability you can unlock. I'm not sure if there are any other abilities strictly with them. Well, that you can use them to power up your bow and arrow as well. And the higher you get that level, the more actions you can store up and use during combat scenarios, which is nice. Those abilities come in use a lot. And the more you gain, you can also upgrade your shield, which is beneficial, because the shield, which is the same thing for parrying, doesn't parry all that well. But when you're getting attacked by certain enemies, especially mid bosses and the big bosses, they are able to clear the distance really fast, and they have a huge range, many of them. So it is good for certain attacks when you know their patterns to pull up the shield instead of dodging, because you're not going to be able to dodge everything. But it's been a really good time. Bosses can be frustrating. It was especially frustrating with the first boss, but with every other boss, I've beaten them after 1 or 2 tries. So that's not been too much of a problem. I'm curious if that'll change with some of the later bosses, the final boss. But so far, I'm really, really enjoying the game and looking forward to playing more of it. But who knows? Maybe those thoughts will change. Anywho, that will do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Mark Kuznez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you get access to a monthly Q&A, a fancy Discord channel, private thing. I need to streamline this thing. Some cool Discord roles that aren't all that cool, but you get them nonetheless, and other goodies, including some random drops here and there on the Patreon itself. That's probably where a lot of movie podcast type of things are going to lie, if they lie anywhere. Or you could just support me if that's your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/pxs. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day whenever you are watching or listening to this here show. But for now, adios. Arrivederci.
It's go time, go daddy. It's go time, go daddy.